You're about to go behind enemy lines.
Roger, 3-2. Goliath copies all. Go ahead. Target is surrounded by multiple firms entering what appears to be a residential area.
The leader in talk radio on the internet, right here on K98Talk.com.
Is debt beating you down? You need discipline. You need the Debt Ninja. If you've been caught in a financial trap and need to be set free, then you need the Debt Ninja. Want to stop those harassing collection calls? Start saving thousands in interest and fees and get out of debt fast? Then you need to call the Debt Ninja. The Debt Ninja will find the best companies across the country that will help you consolidate all your bills into one easy payment, reduce your payments by 30 to 50%, and get you out of debt fast. If you have unsecured debt of $10,000 or more, such as credit cards, loans, or medical bills, call the Debt Ninja for a free 15-minute consultation.
Call 800-826-1246. 800-826-1246. That's 800-826-1246. Call today.
The Debt Ninja.
This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it. There to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-516-7602 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-516-7602 to take your call right now. Call 1-800-516-7602. That's 1-800-516-7602. Again, 1-800-516-7602.
In these uncertain economic times, you've got to do whatever you can to save money. One of our biggest expenses can be our cars, especially when unexpected repair bills hit. Not anymore. If you own a vehicle with less than 130,000 miles, is less than 12 years old, has a warranty about to expire, or even no warranty at all, you could stop paying for car repairs. Roadside assistance, towing, and rental coverage are all included. Don't wait for the next repair. Make one free call right now to see if you qualify. If your vehicle is less than 12 years old, has less than 130,000 miles, even if it's out of warranty, paying for car repairs can become a thing of the past. Call us right now and get your car protected before your next repair bill hits. Get protection and no more repair bills. Call 800-696-1030. Again, 800-696-1030. That's 800-696-1030. 800-696-1030.
Alright folks, this is Rick Robinson with you. I want to tell you about some friends of mine from a company called Security Enforcement Specialists. When I ran my security agency for 12 years, I worked with one of these partners on a daily basis. He's been involved in this agency now, and with his other partner, they do have over 30 years of experience in the private security industry. If you own a business, and you need someone to keep you or your customers or residents safe, then I highly recommend contacting Security Enforcement Specialists today. Give them a call at 405-703-1796. Again, that's 405-703-1796. Again, tell them Rick from K98 Talk sent you. Like I said, if you need the help, they are here for you. So make sure that you go look them up, check them out, and see what they can do.
Wrong way. Welcome to the place.
Individuals and businesses with tax problems, listen carefully. Do you feel like you're losing control over your finances? If you owe over $10,000 in back taxes or have unfiled tax returns, we can help you take back control. The IRS is the largest and most aggressive collection agency in the world, and they can seize your bank account, garnish your paycheck, close your business, and file criminal charges. Take control of your tax problems now by calling the experts at Tax Mediation Services and take advantage of the Fresh Start program and new laws that may allow us to negotiate a settlement for the lowest amount possible. Our team of tax attorneys and enrolled agents can stop collections and get you protected so you can take control of your financial future. Tax Mediation Services is accredited by the Better Business Bureau. Call now for a free case review and a price protection guaranteed quote.
Call Tax Mediation Services now at 800-610-9050. That's 800-610-9050. 800-610-9050.
The Internet will never be the same. You're listening to K98Talk.com.
Wow. Good God, y'all. What is it good for? Absolutely.
Information being taken.
From the People's Republic of New York City, you're now going behind enemy lines with Gene Baradelli and Russ Gallo.
And you are now behind enemy lines. Hey there, how you doing, America? Gene Baradelli here with you, hot off the heels of the Federation for American Immigration Reform's Hold Their Feet to the Fire Radio Row event. Russ and I were very happy to attend it. We got a lot of great interviews from that event. This is going to be the first of two shows bringing you some of those great interviews. The first show, all about the congressman. So let's get right to it right now. Here's our interview with Congressman Lou Barletta. And I have the pleasure right now to sit down with the representative from the 11th District of the great state of Pennsylvania, Congressman Lou Barletta. Sir, thank you for coming up on the show. And tell us about your involvement with FAIR. I believe you're on the Board of Advisors, right?
I am, Gene. I've been doing this now for 10 years. It goes back to my time as mayor of Hazleton when I first started to come down here, and I've been doing it every year.
Well, let's talk about your term as mayor, because that's really where you started dealing with the issue of illegal immigration. It's not just a federal issue; it's a local issue.
Yeah, it is. There's no question. You know, nobody here in Congress saw it from the with the same perspective that I saw it, trying to deal with it as a mayor of Hazleton. Our population in Hazleton grew by 50%, but our tax revenue stayed the same. When I realized we had an illegal immigration problem, I came down and met with the Department of Justice in December of 2005. They brought all these experts in to talk to me. I told them about the problem that I had, the crime and the illegal immigration problem. And what they gave me at the end of the day was a nice coffee mug, a lapel pin, a pat on the back, and they sent me home. I realized that the federal government wasn't going to do anything to help me on a local level. A couple months later, May 10th, 2006, day I'll never forget, Derek Kishline, 29-year-old city man, father of 3 children. I had some words with the head of the Latin Kings, Pedro Cabrera, someone who was in the country illegally, arrested 6 times in New York and left go. Comes to Hazleton. Cabrera goes in his car, gets a gun, sticks it in Derek's face, shoots and kills him. We spent half of our yearly budget in overtime in the police department in catching Cabrera and his buddy, and I had enough. Enough was enough, and I created the first law in America dealing with illegal immigration. I was immediately sued the next day by illegal aliens who were defended by the ACLU pro bono. I fought it all the way to the Supreme Court. became a national issue. Although we did not win because of the liberal Third Circuit Court that I had to face. We paved the way for other states and municipalities across America. Arizona used the business portion of my ordinance, and Fremont, Nebraska used the entire ordinance. So it's been a long fight for me, and now I got here to Washington, and I got to see behind the curtains and see exactly what I knew all along from the time I was mayor. There's no real will here to do anything about illegal immigration.
Let's talk about what it's like behind the curtains when it comes to this issue. And you say that there's no will. Tell us exactly what you mean by that. Does that mean that there's no political courage to take on the issue and to call it what it is?
Oh, yeah, you're absolutely correct. Listen, it's for a politician, this is not a topic that you want to be out front on because they're worried about getting reelected. You're going to be called a lot of names. Listen, I've had threats. I've been called every name in the book. It goes on and on and on. I've had to have the police sit outside my house some nights because of the fact that I stood up and said what I thought I saw, not what I thought I saw, what I know. No, there's no real will here. People talk the talk, but there's not any action. I mean, here we are. I'm telling you a story about 2006. It's 2016. We're still talking about our open borders, and the threat has gotten worse. Think about it. 2006, we just thought about people coming here taking our jobs, depressing the wages of the American worker. Then we learned, listen, this is the way the drug cartel gets here. Now it's even worse than that. Radical Islamic terrorists are here. And it's still not enough for people here in Washington to say, hey, I think it's a good idea if we secure our borders and we know who's coming into this country. Very first bill I introduced when I got here would prohibit $1 federal to go to any city that declares itself a sanctuary city.
Thank you for bringing up this issue, because I come from the People's Republic of New York City, where we're allocating $60 million for municipal IDs that can be picked up by anybody in a public library and apply for it, and then they can have ID. There's a movement now in the New York City Council to allow for a second type of ballot for illegal immigrants to be able to vote in municipal elections. It's absolute insanity to me to think that government that is basically paid for by citizens who are here legally, whose families have been here for generations, who have a vested interest in what happens in government, are now being diluted by liberals, really, who are fighting for rights for people who don't even respect the laws of this country.
Well, what's crazy is that we have elected officials who are giving more rights to illegal aliens than United States citizens would have. A sanctuary city, they are creating a safe haven where the government will protect the identities of people who have knowingly broken our laws, coming here to the United States, taking our jobs, putting Americans' national security at risk, because we don't know who is who. We don't know the background of any individual that have skirted the interview process. And we have government officials protecting illegal aliens. When I was sued by the illegal aliens when I created that law in Hazleton, the illegal aliens went to the judge and asked if they could have their identities protected, which he granted. We weren't.
Wait. So they were suing, but they didn't want anybody to know who they were while they were suing you.
Nor could we ask them their name. I don't even know if they were really from Hazleton. We weren't allowed to ask. They then went back and asked the judge if they could be excused from showing up at the trial because they were in the country illegally and they didn't want to go to a federal courthouse out of fear of being deported, and the judge granted them that wish.
I'm amazed that they had standing to even sue. That's the craziness of it all.
So these illegal aliens were given more rights than you or me, who could not sue our municipality, our city, and remain anonymous. I never saw our accuser. I thought that was a right that every American had. I never saw our accuser to this day. And the court ruled in favor of the illegal aliens. So, here we are, and I can tell you there's a lot of talk here in Washington, but not a lot of will or backbone to actually do something about it.
Well, let's forget about the talk in Washington for a second. Let's talk about the talk around the nation, because maybe it's just me, but let me get your opinion on this. Can we agree that the issues of illegal immigration has been put on the forefront of the campaign for the first time in a very long time?
Oh, there's no question. If it wasn't for Donald Trump, we wouldn't be talking about it. You know, he had the courage to come out and say what people have been thinking, and I related to that because, for a very long time I stood out there by myself, and I couldn't get a politician to come near me. And come to think of it, it was pretty refreshing. I wish I can do that again now, but.
Be a Republican in New York City. They'll do that all the time for you. Don't worry.
But, if it wasn't for Trump, this issue, we would not be talking about it. The other politicians would have skirted around the issue a little bit, throw out a couple of talking points, but there's no real backbone. This is why the American people are as angry as they are, because they don't believe that anybody here in Washington has the courage to do anything about illegal immigration.
Well, listen, I'm glad that we got the chance to speak. You got to make the rounds through all the tables here. Congressman Lou Barletta, tell people, listen, one thing we know from this game is that money and people is what makes the world go round in politics. We want to make sure that you get as much support as you can in all your endeavors in Pennsylvania and here in Washington. Tell people how they can get in touch with you, your staff, or any social media stuff that you want to do and all that fun stuff.
They could follow me and go to my website at loubarletta.com. Lets you know everything that I'm doing, and I'm going to continue the fight, and people can help.
Before I let you go, though, I know we did the plugs right now, and we're going to do it again because I like this guy a lot, folks. Just want to let you know right now. I got to get your opinion on Bill de Blasio, because you mentioned in the story about Hazleton how it was a New York criminal that came into your community and committed that horrendous act. What do you think about this progressive agenda by this now embattled mayor of New York City?
Well, I don't agree with any mayor that creates a safe haven for people who have knowingly broken our laws to come and be protected by that governor. I had a history with some of the New York mayors. I had to testify at one time when I was mayor with Mayor Bloomberg. Actually, it was Mayor Bloomberg, myself, and Police Commissioner Johnson from Philadelphia. We testified at a Senate Judiciary Committee with Senator Ted Kennedy. And, at the time, Mayor Bloomberg said that New York City's economy would crash if it didn't have illegal immigrants. Who would wash our dishes, he said, who would bus our tables, who would clean our hotel rooms. And, my Italian went from 0 to 100. I said, I'll tell you who will wash those dishes. The single mom that not only has to clean hotel rooms, but wash dishes, and I'll tell you who will bust those tables, the high school dropout that has nowhere else to go. What happens to those people? We don't need to bring people in America to take jobs away from those that depend on it to feed their families.
And believe me, when you hear an Italian American say that they go from 0 to 100 that quickly, wow. It's time to get out of the room, look out for wooden spoons, and just generally stay out of people's ways, man. I grew up in a household just like that. The wooden spoon in the back of the head every time. So let's talk one last time about Washington. Even though I hate talking about Washington, I come from New York and this is kind of a welcome change, but Washington to me still feels like a swamp, and I got to feel dirty kind of when I leave it. Is there any push by the leadership in the House to get any kind of vote onto the floor regarding illegal immigration? You said that there's no political will. Does it start at the top of the House leadership? Am I going to be able to get you to talk badly about House leadership?
I think it's throughout. I think it's throughout. I have a bill that would go after visa overstays, and it's very hard to get any of these bills to the floor. I think we need somebody in the White House that will drive the issue. Because this is a topic that most politicians here in Washington, they don't want to do anything about because they're afraid that they won't get reelected again.
And yet they had a perfect opportunity with the refugee relocation program to actually take a stand and actually possibly get a victory. Why didn't that happen?
It's unbelievable. I mean, here we are. I had 4. I'm on Homeland Security Committee. We had 4 national security experts testify that we cannot properly check the backgrounds of anyone coming from Syria, and at the same time we are continuing to allow people to come into America to put our families and our friends and our neighbors at risk. Let's just start doing the right thing. And when Donald Trump, and I like to say this because I think this really gets at the heart of what people here in America are saying. Let's put America first for a change. We are the greatest country on this planet, but at the same time we need to protect Americans first.
Well, listen, I'm glad that you're in Congress protecting Americans first on this issue and many other issues. Good luck to you in your election futures. I'm sure that you're getting ready to go back to the 11th and start communicating this message to them. It's probably a message that you were voted in on in the first place,
That's
right?
how I got here. You know, I came from a district that is 2-1 Democrat. And it just shows you how deep, people feel, how strongly they feel about issues that affect their families and their jobs. And if more politicians did that, they wouldn't have to worry about re-election. If I don't get elected again because I stood up for what I believe in, I'll be happy to go back to Hazleton and find another job. But I worry about my children, grandchildren, and what America will look like.
And that's what you call an elected official working behind enemy lines. Congressman Barletta, thank you so much for coming down, and we'll see you down the road.
Thank you. Good to talk to you.
Thanks to Congressman Lou Barletta for coming on the show. His interview really set up the theme for the questions we wanted to ask everyone. Had to do with political courage, had to do with sanctuary cities. You're going to hear those themes come up over and over again in these interviews. And speaking of the interviews, let's get right into our interview with Congressman Steve King of Iowa. Gene and Russ back behind enemy lines. And one person's feet we will never have to hold to the fire because he's always the straightest shooter in Congress. Our friend Steve King from Iowa. Sir, thanks for coming back on the show. Great to have you.
Really happy to be back. Thank you, Gene.
So let's talk about your participation in FAIR first and foremost, because honestly, you're one of the few and the proud that have the will to step out on this important issue.
Well, it just, all together, what happens here in this town and across the country, nationally speaking, the old expression, birds of a feather flock together. But you wonder how it is that you build friends and make friends in certain ways. We come together to the same events. We're working on the same cause. If there's an event like Hold Your Feet to the Fire, I'm here. They're here. Everybody's here. And then hearings in Congress, testimony that's taking place, any kind of a press conference or a rally, social events that are going on, receptions here and along the way. You look around and you see the people that believe like things, and it builds relationships and networks so that we're more effective.
So let's talk about a couple of themes that we've been hearing about while we're here. The first one being that Congress does not have the collective political will to talk seriously about immigration reform. Do you agree or disagree?
Oh, I agree. I agree. The fight's not there in Congress. In fact, we're concerned about being rolled from the open border side. And even though there's a strong message here in this country, and with the anticipated nomination of Donald Trump, he made his campaign on immigration. And a lot of that, when I read his website, fits word for word for what I've been saying and writing for a long time. And I'm happy that that's the case. I hope he keeps it, and I hope he uses it. But the lack of will, this town is, when I first came here, I was a little bit more naive than I am today. And I believe that if I could I actually believe it when I went to the Iowa Senate, I had some of this washed out of me. But one would believe that a system would work this way, that people would come from each of the 435 congressional districts in America. They would bring the set of principles and convictions that reflect the values of the districts across the country. You could stand on principle and convince people that believe in principle that they'll come to your side. And the reality of it turns out to be, it's great to be right on principle. You must be. But to be able to convince others to follow you, instead, you need to find a political reason for them to come around on your side, because they aren't always as principled as we would like.
Okay, so speaking of, on the topic of terrorism, sir, big topics in the news as of late: guns, immigration, Islam. Which is the most important when dealing with terrorism in your view, and what is the House doing on any of those topics?
Well, I'd say first, the most important is immigration with regard to terrorism, because we're watching as the president is, I wouldn't say just willfully, in a calculating way, he's trying to pour as many people from the terrorist, I'll call them terrorist sponsoring and terrorist spawning countries in the world as he can get into the United States. They have set up a target or a goal to pour at least 10,000 in, processing them through a location in Amman, Jordan. So he's in there. They're in the business of, and have been in the business now for maybe 2 decades, of trying to shift the demographics in America through immigration to benefit themselves politically. They've long looked and thought that if they can get 3 people to come in here from the third world, 2 of them will be Democrats at least. So they're about recruiting future documented Democrats and bringing in undocumented Democrats, and they don't care what happens to this culture, society, or civilization. And another thing that they happen to do is they look at our values, our principled, the principled social and conservative values, and they think, well, we're going to break those values down. And it's just a strategic thing. I don't know that they have a plan for what's on the other side of it. They just want to break down our values.
It has a twofold effect, what you're talking about. Yes, they're bringing in future Democrats. But what they're doing is they're keeping those Democrats that are already here, the single mom living in the projects in the People's Republic of New York City, as I like to call it, from getting those jobs that then those illegal immigrants may be getting, and therefore keeping them dependent upon government and keeping them even more so entrenched in the Democratic Party. It has that twofold effect. The question I have, though, is you can have the best laws in the world, and we can have everything pass. But if you don't have the proper administration of those laws by the executive branch, it's all going to fail anyway. What level of confidence do you have that the executive branch, under either party, would be able to effectively enforce any of the reforms that you would want to get passed?
Well, yeah, first, if I could just have the enforcement of the laws we have, we'd go a long, long ways towards solving this problem. In fact, had we been doing so for the last 25 years or so, we would have the problem. We wouldn't have the problem we have today. I recall when the class elected in 2010 came in, 87 freshman Republicans, a cohesive conservative group. At the beginning, they haven't stayed quite together as much as we would all like. But I remember sitting at a press conference with some of them, self-appointed conservative leaders within that group, and they were pontificating. They'd been here maybe a half a year or so at the time. They were pontificating about how they thought they could write some laws that would be tight enough that Barack Obama would have to enforce them. And I finally just lost my cool a little bit. Are you serious? Are you watching him? He's violating the Constitution. He's violating laws. He's violating the laws that he's signed. And do you think that you can write something to get him to sign it that he's actually going to abide by? And the answer is no. They were naive at that time, and they're not so much now.
It's amazing. We think that law will dictate behavior when we talk about citizenry. It doesn't even dictate behavior when we talk about the executive, Russ. It's crazy.
And speaking of executives, from the outgoing, which we know what we got there, to the possible one of two incomings, how's that looking for the House working with either President Trump or President Clinton on any of these issues going forward?
Well,
I'm guessing it's going to be like, do you want to be poisoned or shot, right? Is that what you're thinking about?
Well, maybe I should deal with Hillary first and get that handled. We know what she will do. She will do an accelerated version on immigration of what Barack Obama has done, and she's said so. I mean, she would like to push people straight into citizenship if she could. She would bring in more and more refugees from the terrorist part of the world. I've dealt with her face to face in multiple years when she was Secretary of State. We had to have those sit down discussions like we're sitting here. No press, no staff, eye to eye. And I would think that she would accelerate that. And her respect for the Constitution is, I wouldn't say it's non-existent. I would say she's read it, she understands it, but she'd be looking for ways, and essentially said so, to circumvent it. When you get so it would be a horrible circumstance. The nominations to the Supreme Court and to the federal bench out of Hillary Clinton, that's one thing she would run the table on. From their perspective, she'd get everything right, and from our perspective, she'd get everything wrong. And the Constitution itself, within a few years, would be unrecognizable in its function. It would become an artifact of history that was irrelevant any longer, with the exception of the judges on the court would hold it up and say, I can interpret this, but you can't read it and understand it because you're not on the bench. That's how bad it would be with Hillary. With Donald Trump, he says he'll build a wall, and he'll build a beautiful wall, and he'll let the Mexicans pay for it. All right, let's go ahead with that one then. And what I'm seeing is this prosecutorial discretion that President Obama has exploited just obscenely, and we may get a decision on that yet this month. That's something that a wall does not have, is prosecutorial discretion. And so we build a good solid wall that will be 90-some% effective, and the better we man it and the better technology we put on it, the closer it gets to 100%. So even if we lose a few people that get over, under, around, or through, they'll be the best physical specimens, and we'll be able to identify them that way.
You know, I think when it comes to considering a Trump presidency, trust is built on keeping your word over and over and over again. I think, maybe I don't want to speak for you, Congressman, I think you're waiting for that trust to initially begin before getting fully on board behind what a President Trump could do. Is that fair to say?
Well, there's been some inconsistencies, and there's no doubt about that. And what I'm trying to do is work with Trump's people and get to a place where I can have confidence that they'll be following through, that they'll have good, solid, principled, rule of law, conservative members conservative people around Trump. If I believe we can work with the Trump administration, then I can step up and say, let's go for this. Right now, I say if the election's today, I'll vote for him.
Speaking of elections, money and people is what makes elections happen, right, Russ? And Congressman King's a friend of ours. We want to make sure he gets reelected, and he gets all the support possible through this show. Congressman, tell people how they can get in touch with you about all the great work that you're doing in Iowa and how they can support you, either through money, volunteering, what have you, and all the social media stuff.
Oh, great. Well, our campaign headquarters are at steveking.com, and it's real simple, just steveking.com. That's the website, and all the excess information is there. There is a donate button, and we can use it. As you can imagine, there are people on the left and some people on the center that would love to see me shot down and out. They ran a primary against me in June of this year, just this month, and we came out of that pretty well, 65 to 35. But it tells you that there's people that want to own a congressman, and they want to be able to tell him what he can do, what he shall do, and what he doesn't do. That effort has taken place in my district. So I've got an opponent that's coming at me and is using a lot of attack ads right now. So anyway, steveking.com will get that done, and we're a 24-month, 24/7 operation. My youngest son's the campaign chair. You call there, you're likely to get a hold of Jeff King, youngest son.
All right. And Russ, I think on behalf of you, I'm going to say, coming from the People's Republic of New York, you are our favorite Congressman King in Congress.
Yes, not to be confused with the other Congressman King from Long Island.
Yeah,
this is an actual conservative
like you
here.
so much better. Congressman Steve King, thank you so much for coming on the show, pal. We're at halftime here behind Enemy Lines. Thanks for listening to the show. I'm Gene. The other guy you're hearing is Russ. And while we got you listening, check us out at www.BehindEnemyLinesRadio.us. Check us out on the Facebooks and the Twitters at BEL_radio. And in case you missed any part of this live broadcast here on Spreaker, Tuesday nights at 10 p.m., you can check us out at any one of our rebroadcast outlets, including WJHC 107.5 FM on the Florida-Georgia line, K98 Talk, High Plains Talk Radio, Sackheads Media, and the Internet's conservative radio network, ICRN. But if you miss us on any one of those rebroadcast outlets, you can take Behind Enemy Lines Radio with you anytime on demand. You can check us out at iTunes, Spreaker, TuneIn, Stitcher, Podbay, Player FM, iHeartRadio, and you can also discover us on Google Play Music. Let's get back to the interviews right now. Here's the interview we did with Congressman Dave Brat. Well, listen, I've had the opportunity to speak to a lot of Congress members this week, and the theme that's been running through them, especially when it comes to the issue of immigration reform, is a lack of political will within Congress. Do you agree or disagree with that sentiment, at least?
No, that's right on the money. Need a spinal transplant and some courage up here. And the last two budgets we had, the Cromnibus and the Omnibus and whatever, that's must-pass stuff, right? That's where you can tell what our leadership wants to get done. So when they want to get the Export-Import Bank through for the crony buddies, boy, it shows up must-pass. Right, but when it comes to immigration, Brian Babin, my colleague's got a great bill on the refugee crisis, folks coming in from the terrorist hotspots, 7 countries. Instead of putting that in, which we all pushed very hard for, it's an 80% issue, right, with the people. Instead of putting that in, they rejected it, and instead they put in a 400% increase in H-2B visas, right, for the crony side again. So the American people are kind of getting sick of footing the bill for everything, Obamacare, da-da-da-da-da. Some of the big guys are getting off scot-free, and the middle class is catching on to the game up here pretty quick. And so they want to see some big change.
Let's focus on that legislation regarding Syrian refugees that you were talking about. Yeah. Where would the accountability be? Because you can pass a great law.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, because it comes from you, it's a very nicely tailored law.
Yeah.
But the application of it and the enforcement of it by the federal government, how can you have confidence in any legislation you're passing if you have an executive branch that's not going to be willing to enforce it the way it's meant to be written?
Well, you got it right. That's the fundamental issue, right? Loretta Lynch is overseeing this to sit in the Democrats are doing right now. And it's been an issue since when Boehner was in a year and a half ago, I came in, right, for my first term.
Yeah, you might have made a little splash when you did that, by the way, especially with the leadership.
Right. So I won a few friends on that one. But the big issue, my first week in, and I had to vote against the rule and da-da-da-da-da, but what it was Obama's unconstitutional amnesty. And we've forgotten. Obama himself said 20 times on TV, it's unconstitutional. And then he does it. We said we're going to defund DHS, et cetera. We're going to fight tooth and nail. That was Boehner's quote, right? Tooth and nail. No tooth, no nail, no nothing, right? We just rolled. And now we're funding it fully, and no one even remembers, right, that it was an issue, and doesn't hold our own leadership. And so our own leadership has not fought hard for the issues, and there's been a vacuum. And then my own side wants to know where Donald Trump comes out of. Well, he comes out of that vacuum that we created by not having guts to fight Russia, China, right, et cetera, trade deals for the middle class, wages, immigration, everything.
Actions have consequences, and Donald Trump is the consequence of the inaction of many of the House leadership.
Right.
Let's talk about the sit-in that happened this week in Congress. For just your initial reaction to that, and then what exactly is the point at this time, if I can just steal something from Hillary Clinton? Everything that was meant to go through the legislative process failed. So now you're going to throw a hissy fit? Is that what this is?
Right. I mean, a lot of us on our own side would love to demand a bill out of our leadership on certain topics, right? I just mentioned immigration. Well, I don't have enough votes. We don't have enough horsepower yet until the American people demand it, and it's coming.
You must start a sit-in right now, Congressman.
Right. I know. Exactly. So that's coming. And so the left on this one, they're just completely confused, right? I mean, so the thesis was terrorist lists shouldn't be able to buy guns.
And due process be damned.
Yeah, and due process be damned. But even more fundamental, just go through it real slow, right? So you've identified a terrorist, and along this fair day today, right, why wouldn't that person be in jail? Why are you worried about the gun thing, right? So they're hyping it on the politics. If you got a terrorist and you know it, the FBI shouldn't be dropping them, right? This guy was dropped. He was on the list in 2014 and was free to buy a gun after because it wasn't on the list. He should have been in jail or deported, right, if he's here illegal or et cetera.
Absolutely right.
We're way off, and that gets to Loretta Lynch and the FBI.
And even if he would have been identified, to catch him in time.
No, that's
right. Administration of justice here was lacking. It happened with Dylan Roof, and it happened in a lot of other cases.
Right, and they were using the past 2 decades of gun tragedies, right? And they're tragedies. No one's making light of any of it, right?
Absolutely not.
It's dead serious stuff. But they're completely misdiagnosing the problem and providing a wrong solution. And the one bill they're pushing is off. And the ACLU, who's not known for being a right-wing bastion, opposes them on due process, etc.
Absolutely. Well, we're getting a lot of wisdom from you in this interview about current events. Let's talk about some more wisdom that you're dropping on everybody. On June 28th, I believe it's coming out.
Tuesday, right on.
American Underdog, Proof That Principles Matter.
Yep.
Tell us about what made you write the book.
Yeah, I got a book coming out. First few chapters are just fun, highlighting the win over Eric Cantor, majority leader.
Everyone wants to talk about a victory, don't they?
No, so it was good. And everyone misdiagnosed it, right? The New York Times, they just made up stories. So we try to get it right, make it a little fun. And then more seriously, I ran on, right? I went to Princeton Seminary back when, did a PhD in economics. And so those are the principles, right? And so James Madison, I went to Princeton Seminary, where roughly speaking he wrote the Constitution. He studied Hebrew just for kicks after he finished undergrad, and that's the author of our Constitution, right? So I argue there's 3 pillars that are the foundation for the country that have made us great like we are, and the Judeo-Christian tradition is the utter foundation. It's not some little band of religion, right? It's the entire arc of Western Civ that founded everything else. Harvard, Yale, Princeton, founded all of it, right? And then the rule of law, the Constitution, human rights language comes only out of that tradition. And in 1776, you also get my buddy across the pond, Adam Smith, in the Scottish Enlightenment, right? Also another Presbyterian, just by fluke, right? And so some great things line up. And all of that is reversible, right? They've launched us from $1,000 a year to $50,000 a year. And now growth is 0.7%. The deficit this year under our own leadership is $535 billion. We have $100 trillion in unfunded liabilities. I document all this, try and put it in some fun stories. And we're fundamentally off track in a serious way. And the group that's going to pay the price is the kids. We're throwing all this on the kids. All the major systems are insolvent in less than 18 years. Medicare, Social Security, done.
It's a scary prospect that not only are our institutions failing us, but there's this idea of political culture that has been lost.
That's right.
Over time.
Yeah.
We got to this point in our nation's history, not just because of the policies, but the principles in our American political culture that got us here.
Right.
Why is there such an attack by the left, who presumably are from that same political culture that we have.
Yeah.
Why is there such an attack on that? Is it just in the names of, political expediency for this next election and the next cycle and the next cycle?
No, I mean, I think the answer is very difficult, right? There's something psychologically wrong with the hard left. They no longer love the country, right? I'm not talking about Democrats. I'm talking about the hard left, right? They're deconstructionists in philosophy at Harvard for the past 20 years. If you look at what they're doing, they haven't constructed anything of note, right? So you say, good, you hate free market capitalism. What system do you have in mind? Nothing. Oh, good. You hate Immanuel Kant. You hate Aristotle. You hate Jesus. You hate Moses. Good. Name your philosopher. Who do you like? Nothing. Maybe you get a Rousseau in the French Revolution.
But they'll be just as quick to tell you who they hate.
Yeah, and if they give you Marx, maybe, but nothing constructive. And good luck constructing a system with those guys, right? Good luck with it. And so they fail the intellectual test. And in their failure, I think they get upset that, hey, this is the tradition that is unquestioned in bringing you not only the theory, but the results, flourishing human lives for everybody. And it's amazing. Look at South America, right? Brazil right now, what's going on? So the left is yelling at us. We're supposed to take in all the refugees. We're supposed to help the poor from all the rest of the world. There wouldn't be any poor, right? If the left, I worked at the World Bank 25 years ago. If the left at that time would have proposed free markets as a solution for the poor, there wouldn't be any poor, right? China and India, 2.5 billion people, right? All children of God, right? Just to be clear on this stuff, have come out of poverty and are up from $1,000 to $9,000 per person, right? And that's what they chose the free market system. We're now rejecting it, and it's all reversible, and we're on the downhill slide right now. We've got to turn it around quick.
We definitely have to turn around quick, and we need serious people to turn around quick,
Yep.
which is why we want to turn to the topic we talk about at the end of every interview, and that's that money and people is what make politics go around. We want to get as much money and people behind you as possible.
Super, good.
So tell people how they can get in touch with you through social media and any campaign stuff that you want to talk about.
Sure.
Obviously, you run for re-election. We fully support you in that. Anything we can do to help you, please let us know. But give all the people the information.
Yeah, just DaveBrat.com. Dave, B-R-A-T, Brat, like bad boy. DaveBrat.com if you want to hit the red button and help me out financially a little bit. But get on there. If you're in Virginia, got friends in Virginia, spread the word. Have folks get on my email list. If you're not from Virginia, I explain all my votes. I try to explain. I ran on 6 Republican principles that are outlined in the book, in addition to the foundational stuff I just mentioned. And I didn't make it up, right? It's not original to me. This is the greatest minds in Western Civ, starting with Socrates through Adam Smith. And I just try to lay it out and make it coherent for today.
Just between me, you, and the thousands of people that listen to the show, I want to make it clear, supporting you is more than just supporting one race for one congressional district. It's more of a message because of the significance of what your win was for the grassroots in the conservative movement. Folks, check out the website again is DaveBrat.com, and get out there starting next Tuesday, which is, when you listen to this, will be this Tuesday. American Underdog, proof that principles matter, on Amazon and where finer books are sold.
Awesome.
Congressman, thank you so much for coming on the show. Look forward to seeing you down the road.
Pleasure, man. Great job. Thank you, man.
Hello and welcome. My name's Andre Walker, and your weekly monologue starts right now. Last week, I closed the monologue asking you to pray for Brexit, British independence from the European Union. Oh my God, did that ship come in? Over 70 million British people, or 52% of those voting, said FU EU. They said no to this undemocratic, monolithic, socialist superstate. Brits are sick of the superstate that meddled in their lives and taxed them without democratic representation. It passed laws to tell us our cucumbers needed to be firm, regulated the shape of bananas, and banned Bombay duck. Bombay duck? Yeah, you know what that is, right? Oh, okay. Well, it's a frankly disgusting dried fish that is called Bombay duck because duck is the word for male in Hindi. This food smells so bad, it's similar to the smell of the overnight mail train to Bombay. But don't be put off. After all, it was King George V's favourite food. But in 1997, the EU, or EU as I prefer to call it, made it illegal. Yes, that's right, illegal. Now you imagine, King George were alive today. He's riding around London with 4 Windsor Greys pulling the Imperial State carriage. and he gets stopped for a missing brake light. Just as he's explaining that 18th century carriages don't have brake lights, the officers suspect he's carrying illegal substances. After all, he's got a beard and still lives with his mum despite being married. But he ain't got no blow. He ain't been shooting up no skag neither, snorting the meth, nor toking a splifter of the ganja. By the way, that was my attempt at American slang. Hope you liked it. No, His Britannic Majesty's only crime was to enjoy snacking on small dried fish, whilst also being a citizen of the European Union. That won't put him in no K-hole, I'm telling you, blood. But it is still illegal. There's a serious point here. The Anglosphere, that great English-speaking family of nations around the world, don't want government to take over every element of their lives. They want to be free to do what they want to do, buy what they want to buy, live the way they want to live. Because, my brothers and sisters, if your only choice is government, then that is no choice at all. There is only one moment I ever liked from the film Braveheart. It was when the executioner asked William Wallace to beg for mercy, and instead he roared the word, freedom! That was the monologue. Just time to announce the winner of last week's quiz. We asked, what will President Juncker of the EU do to restrict democracy next? John Bull from England got it right with, we really don't care what President Juncker thinks anymore. Second prize goes to Donald from New York, who said, we really don't care what Barack thinks either. This is Andre Walker, and we are no longer behind enemy lines. So now we repay your prayers with some prayers of our own. We pray for America's freedom tonight, for your right to the Second Amendment, for your right to freedom of speech, and for your right to live your lives without government interference. You prayed for us, we pray for you. Until you are free like us, goodbye.
Check out Andre's column at townhall.com. Check him out on Twitter at AndreJP Walker. And read Andre's work here, Behind Enemy Lines. Now back to the show.
Gene Baradelli, Russ Gallo, back behind enemy lines here at the Hold Their Feet to the Fire Radio Row, put on by the Federation for American Immigration Reform. Wow, that's a mouthful from a guy from Brooklyn, New York. Joining us right now from the great state of Arizona, Congressman Paul Gosar. I hope I got that right.
You got it. You got it, Gene.
Baradelli is one of those names that gets mispronounced all the time, so I always like to make sure we get it right.
I just think about Ghostbusters.
There you go. What are you going to call the Congressman from Arizona? How you doing, sir?
I'm doing very good, Gene.
Let's talk about your involvement here at this event and the issues that you want to bring to light. We were discussing before we started the interview some legislation that's very important to you. So let's get into that.
Absolutely. So we have two pieces of legislation this week. We have financial services, one of the 12 appropriation bills. And what one of our amendments is the defunding of sanctuary cities. Here we have cities in total violation of federal law, and what ends up happening, they have to suffice and obey that, otherwise no federal funding. So a pretty clear-cut aspect. The second one issue is also a military issue that we've actually tried to pass numerous times. It's the first time in U.S. history that an illegal was actually allowed to participate in the military under what they call the MAVNI program, the Military's Ascension Act. And what this was a pilot program that allowed legal non-resident, non-citizens, and legal citizens to apply to the military. However, this administration on September 25th of 2014 allowed DACA recipients that don't have the legal premise to be here based upon Congress's oversight of Article 1, Section 8, Clause 4 powers here. And now what they're doing is allowing them going to MAVNI. Why this is important is this is a backdoor amnesty. Because under the MAVNI program, anybody that serves 1 day in active service in wartime action gets citizenship. So it's important to say, listen, can't do this. This is a violation of the law. And making sure that Congress actually has a sense of that to uphold it.
Sir, something called a curse of knowledge. When you speak to other people who are interested in politics, we all are on the same page, usually with terms. If you can, for our listeners, describe what a sanctuary city is and why this is something that we need to get a grip on.
Well, thank you. That's a great scenario. What ends up happening is the federal government is in charge of immigration policies. And what sanctuary cities are is that they're in total deformation to that policy. So not complying with turning over, like you saw in the Kate Steinle aspect, the incarceration and for illegals, and then turning them over to ICE. They defy that application. So what they're in contradiction is to federal policies that are on the books. They still ask for their federal funding, and what this actually does is say, listen, if you're not going to comply with the law, you're not going to get the federal funding, whether it be for housing, whether it be for roads, whether it be for any of those aspects the federal government is involved in, every nook and cranny. You're not going to get that money. You have to be compliant with the law.
And that would apply to a city like the People's Republic of New York City, where we come from. And Mayor Bill de Blasio has made it clear with his support of municipal IDs that he is not at any time going to be following the federal law as it pertains to illegal immigration. Talk a little bit about cities like New York City, San Francisco, and the impact that they're having on their citizens by failing to follow the law.
Yeah. Gene, it's not just there, but also Phoenix and Tucson and Sedona and Flagstaff in Arizona are the same type of creatures. Is that they're in total deformation, so we're creating a lawless environment. That's the key here. Is America was great because it followed the law. Everybody applied the law equally and fairly across the board, no exceptions. And now what we're doing is we're creating a class of people in regards to the illegals that are exempted from all laws, but yet held no harm, not harmed by the law at all, and that is non-compliant with the Constitution.
Sir, out-of-state tuition rates, service in the military, voting in municipal elections. What are the benefits of being a citizen now? Like, I don't understand it. If we're just granting all these what used to be rights to citizens, to residents and just illegal immigrants altogether.
Well, my understanding is that Constitution gave you the rights as a citizen, not as a non-citizen. But that tells you the Alinsky's proverb that's actually going underneath here. You have to understand where you're being challenged. The de Blasios, the Barack Obamas, the Hillary Clintons are all Alinskyites in regards to where they're changing fundamentally this process called America, called the United States of America. And what ends up happening is, in order to defeat that, you have to understand that. So two of the books that when I talk around the country is I ask people to read is Alinsky's Rules for Radicals, and you understand what you're up against. And number two is how to defeat that is Sun Tzu, The Art of War, understanding what the issue is, the person on the other side or the army on the other side. You look at their strengths and weaknesses, and you build your defenses based on your strengths and weaknesses as well. But you have to be able to articulate that. That's something that you've seen with this administration with not only the illegal immigration issue, but the refugee issue and militant radical Islam. You know, if you can't say it, you can't defeat it.
It seems like a theme going throughout this event here that we're attending is the lack of political courage to enforce the rule of law. And I'm sure that you've seen that on the borders of Arizona more so than anywhere else. Talk a little bit about this unwillingness by politicians not to step up like you're doing to say there is such a thing as illegal immigration, as not just undocumented.
Right.
Let's talk about that a little. Is there any political courage left in Washington, D.C.?
Well, you would absolutely hope. I'm sitting here in one of those people that's been challenging
present companies, of course.
But and there were 211 that voted for my amendment. So where we have to look at is the courage on those and build on that. That's why it behooves me to go to the Republicans on our side to say, listen, why did not you vote for that? Did you not take an oath to the Constitution and to the rule of law? Does that not supersede your predication on any other issue? You know, that's what made us great. But that's also the challenge that's here, is we've gotten into bad habits. Leadership on both sides of the aisle have gotten into bad habits. And what we have to start doing is we have to start fighting for it. We just can't placate. And that's why you see the political turmoil and upheaval that you're seeing this year from the Bernie Sanders people, the Donald Trump people. America's fed up. You know, they're being told one thing and they see actions contradict that. And I believe part of Congress is actually their lack of activity has actually created the scenario. Is that you got to stand for something and you got to fight for it and deliver on your promises. And that's what's key in this aspect here is that you have to follow through. You have to have a synchronized message, but you also have a strategy to get it involved. And that's why, frankly, Gene, we have become one of the foremost accountable congressmen in Congress. Even in my second term, I was the most accomplished members of Congress in being able to get stuff done. But also calling for the people to be held accountable, like Eric Holder, like Gina McCarthy, like the administrator from the IRS. These are all keys that people have to be held, and you have to have a multi-pronged strategy.
Being a New Yorker, Donald Trump, I can sympathize with him. We don't often say things in the right way. He talked about the southern border and illegal immigration, drugs, people coming across. So what's to stop bombs or unknown substances? And if you can, address the other than Mexican illegal immigrants that cross our southern border every day as well.
Well, I'm going to give you an example. In 2011, we actually uncovered a plot. In fact, what they did from Iran is they actually sent and worked with the cartels in northern Mexico, through Mexico, to Washington, D.C. to assassinate the Israeli and Saudi Arabian ambassadors. So, I mean, it's already a proven fact that we've seen this orchestration. It's a porous border. And you see these OTMs, other than Mexicans, coming across the border. This is paramount, particularly when you see our law enforcement, this administration stopping Operation Streamline, where we see where local municipalities and sheriff's offices are detaining people for illegally crossing, and you have a U.S. attorney that says, no, we're not prosecuting, let them go. Then we also have, the predication from this administration and Justice Department, where we've actually turned loose convicted felons, murders, rapists, not deported, turned loose in our hometowns in Arizona. That's what is so scary in this regards. And I beg to talk to people across this country that if you own a piece of property on the Mexican-U.S. border, how different than that is in a suburb of New York, that you should be provided security and protection based upon this is a piece of the United States of America and all aspects are afforded to you equally across that board. This is absolutely ludicrous that we see this coming across that aspect. But, I mean, this administration has been about lawlessness, and that's going to be the legacy.
This administration has also been about poor application of existing law. Let's talk a little bit about in the focus of the whole refugee situation from Syria that we've been dealing with. It's one thing to have laws on the books like you're proposing, but should the American people have more confidence that these laws are going to be carried out when they're on the books already?
Oh, you're exactly right. When we talk about the refugee, I've got another story that brings it home for you. So under the Bush administration, they were actually using human intelligence to do background checks. Okay, and we had a gentleman that showed up in our office down in Casa Grande in 2011. He was a political asylee from Iraq, and what he was asking was for his benefits. We sent those benefits in appropriately. 2 weeks later, we get a letter from the DOJ saying we cannot process this applicant because he's on the terrorist watch list. Oh my God, here's a guy that just got out of prison and is now indicted on 3 different felonies in regards to, but he's still here. What does it take? You also have to remember that this president, in his first 6 months, removed most of the human intelligence forms out of the Middle East. So you're even blinder than what you have here. There is no way, and everybody from Comey to the Homeland Security, everybody has said in national intelligence, there's no way we can background vet these people. And these are coming from areas that are high-intensity Islamic, where ISIS started. And so the propensity, and ISIS has told us that they're integrated that aspect. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to put 2 and 2 together.
I know your time is short, Congressman, and you kind of touched on it. I just want to get just a little deeper because you mentioned vetting these people that are coming across, and we often discuss this topic, and I point out that all the 9/11 hijackers were basically vetted. They were here on a visa, at some point overstood their visa. How can the American people ever be confident that these refugees will be vetted, whether it's UMINT or any method to vet these people?
Trust is a series of promises kept, so you keep one promise at a time. So when you see a contradictory process here, then put time out. That's where the House has stood on that on the refugee process. Time out. That's where you're actually seeing the president actually going into fast track mode. And Hillary Clinton has actually said, we're going to go faster than that. We're going to just bring people in right and left. And that is chilling to all Americans because they're actually seeing their deformation of this country in front of their eyes. Look at what happened to Sweden. The Sweden that we know today is gone. It is gone based upon the refugee status of how many they took in and how they're going to be culturally changed by the Islamic faith. It's unbelievable.
Well, listen, obviously we need to get more men like you in Congress, and we know
further.
And further, absolutely. And we know here on the show, money and people is what make the political world go around. And, of course, election year coming up for you as well. We want to make sure we get as much support for you as possible. How can people get in touch with you through social media, to donate, websites, all that fun stuff?
You can go to my website at gosar.house.gov. And yes, we love to talk to people. We're one of those offices that actually listen to people. By background, I was a dentist for 25 years. I can't help a patient unless I listen to what the problem is. So we have a very good knack of talking to people, listening to people, finding out what's going on, engaging them, finding a solution, getting a strategy, and that's why we've become the hound of the house. We can get stuff done because we've actually put it together. We tried to resolve that aspect of trust. Trust is a series of promises kept. And so it behooves us as American citizens to hold our elected officials accountable. Give them a report card. And FAIR and Numbers are two great industries that give you indices for exactly the people that are standing up for the good things here in the United States, getting back to the rule of law and proper legal immigration, not perpetration of illegal immigration.
This might be the most pleasant dentist visit we've had in a long time, Russ. Congressman, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks, Gene.
And that about wraps up part one of Behind Enemy Lines coverage from FAIR's Hold Their Feet to the Fire. I want to thank all the Congress members coming on the show, Congressman Barletta, Congressman Gozer, Congressman Bratt, and Congressman Steve King. All great interviews. Next week, we get a little more emotional, folks. But until then, it's time to shut this sucker down. We are out of here. Good night, folks. Our position's been compromised. It's time to roll out. Report for debriefing at www.behindenemylinesradio.us and look for regular communications via Facebook and Twitter at BEL_radio. You are the resistance. Behind Enemy Lines. A Rock Radio production. Copyright 2016. Back in 7 days.